Welcome to the Pardest channel. Today we explain Prophets Joshua chapter 2 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're picking up right after Moses has passed away. Joshua is now the leader, and the Israelites are camped just east of the Jordan River. But right between them and the Promised Land stands this massive walled city, Jericho. And before the army can even think about moving forward, Joshua needs some absolutely crucial intel.
We'll be looking strictly at the plain text, the Peshat. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. Context in the Mishnah: Rahab hides the spies, the king's search, the escape and oath, the return to Joshua, and finally, practical life lessons. Let's just dive right in.
Section 1. Context and the mission.
Okay, so starting in verse 1, Joshua secretly sends out 2 spies from their camp at Shittim. Now think about it. He definitely remembers how a bad spy report caused a massive nationwide panic 40 years ago, right? So he keeps this entire operation completely under wraps. Shittim is their absolute final stop on the eastern side of the Jordan River. And their target? Jericho. It is this highly fortified, intimidating stronghold right across the river that they simply must bypass or conquer to enter the land.
Joshua's exact command to these 2 men is literally as direct as it gets: go view the land and Jericho. He isn't making wild guesses here. He's prepping a full military campaign, and he desperately needs hard, boots-on-the-ground intelligence on the terrain, the defenses, and honestly, the mood of the city before he makes his next move.
Sticking to the simple, practical meaning of the text, the spies slip into the city and seek lodging at the house of a harlot, or a prostitute, named Rahab. Now, you might be wondering, why go there of all places? Well, practically speaking, an inn or a brothel right near the city wall is the perfect cover. Travelers and complete strangers are coming and going constantly. 2 unknown guys walking into a place like that wouldn't instantly arouse the same level of suspicion as they would wandering around near the royal palace, you know?
Moving on to part 2. Rahab hides the spies and the king's search.
Well, despite their best attempt at stealth, verses 2 and 3 show us that Jericho's local intelligence network is incredibly sharp. Word quickly reaches the king, and he sends Rahab this chilling message: bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. I mean, the king knows exactly who they are. The spies are trapped, and the situation is instantly a matter of life and death.
But before those guards can even start searching the house, Rahab acts fast. Verse 6 tells us she takes the 2 men up to her flat roof and hides them under these stalks of flax she had laid out up there. Then she turns right around and boldly faces the authorities. She admits the men were there, because obviously she knows she's been seen, but she completely lies about where they went. She says, yes, the men came to me, but I didn't know where they had come from.
And to make her lie perfectly believable, she uses a brilliant psychological trick. In verse 5, she says, at dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, the men left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. See what she did there? By specifically mentioning the gates closing and the dusk setting in, she creates this intense sense of urgent panic for the guards. Suddenly, they don't have time to search her house. They have to run. And it works. The king's men take the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and pursue the spies all the way to the Jordan River.
That brings us to part 3, the escape and oath.
So, before this grand escape actually happens, Rahab goes up to the roof and tells the spies exactly why she is risking her life. In verses 8 through 14, she explains that the whole city is absolutely terrified because they've heard the stories of how God dried up the Red Sea for the Israelites 40 years earlier. She realizes their God is the true God, and so she asks them to swear an oath to protect her family when the city inevitably falls. The spies? They agree, but they set very strict legal boundaries. They basically say, look, we will only be bound to protect you if 3 very specific conditions are met. First, when the army comes, she absolutely must tie a scarlet cord in her window. Second, she has to gather her entire family inside that specific house. If anyone goes outside, they're on their own. And third, she must keep absolute silence about their mission.
Rahab doesn't even hesitate. She fully agrees to their terms. Verse 21 gives us her exact reply: agreed. Let it be as you say. She sends them away and immediately ties that scarlet cord in her window. It's not just a string. It becomes this highly visible, tangible marker of her faith in their promise, and a literal signal to the future invading army that this specific house is strictly off-limits.
Now, Rahab gives them some excellent tactical advice before letting them down by a rope through that window. She tells them, whatever you do, do not head east toward the river. That's where the king's guards are frantically looking. Instead, go west into the rugged hills behind Jericho.
They follow her instructions perfectly in verse 22, hiding out in those mountains for 3 full days. Once the king's pursuers finally give up and return to the city, the 2 spies safely leave the hills, cross the Jordan River, and make it back to camp.
Which leads us to part 4, Return to Joshua.
The spies safely arrive back and recount everything to Joshua. And if we look at verse 24, what they report is absolutely fascinating. Notice what they don't say. They don't focus on the height of the walls or how scary the Canaanite weapons are. Instead, they say, "Truly the Lord hath delivered into our hands all the land, and moreover all the inhabitants of the land do melt away before us." The intel they gathered wasn't just logistical, it was psychological. They confirmed that the enemy's morale was already entirely broken, which made the ultimate military victory a certainty in their minds.
And finally, part 5, practical life lessons.
While this is undeniably a historical account of a military reconnaissance mission, the clear actions of the people involved offer us some really amazing, timeless wisdom. First off, we see immense courage. Rahab risks her life against the king of her own city because she recognizes a greater truth. Second, we see the true value of quick, strategic thinking, like her brilliant manipulation using the closing city gates. That was genius. Third, we learn the absolute gravity of keeping an oath. Even in a frantic rush to escape, the spies meticulously laid out the exact conditions of their promise. Words matter. And finally, we see the importance of recognizing when psychological barriers are broken. The physical walls of Jericho were secondary simply because the people's hearts were already melting in fear.
So how can you apply this kind of courage and strategic thinking to the Jerichos in your own life? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.